Hey guys, good morning. Well, I have been a Stoic now for quite some time, and I adopted the philosophy because I like the idea of value, morals, and the rather austere way they lived. I'm not quite cynical because the cynics actually um, kind of dispensed with even morality and the customs. They'd walk around naked and stuff. Ah, no thanks. I know. So I did kind of land on the Stoics, and I reviewed several websites, and I thought this one was probably the most concise. So let's talk a little bit about how the Stoics viewed food. Now, the Stoics were around for about 2,000 years ago, and cheers, by the way. Hmm. And so we have to look at what they meant when they spoke at the time they lived. They lived on a heavy bread, Mediterranean bean culture, a lot of legumes, the typical Mediterranean um, diet, if you will. And they don't talk about meat a lot, although they weren't averse to it. The Pythagoreans were vegetarians, apparently. But the Stoics didn't have a problem with meat. So let's go through a little bit about what they believed according to this author, and I'll go ahead and make my comments based on what I am, which is pretty much an extremely meat centered, extremely low carbohydrate eater. All right. So both cynics and Stoics were interested in food. Obviously, food is a major deal in all cultures today. I mean, if you don't eat, you're going to die. So we kind of set up our cultures around that. So we're told of the Stoic teacher Musonius Rufus, who said he often talked in a very forceful manner about food on the grounds that food was not an insignificant topic and that what one eats has significant consequences. In particular, he thought that mastering one's appetites for food and drink was the beginning of the basis for self control. Here's the fun part. If I asked you to hold your breath, you probably couldn't do it for more than a minute or so. That's because hormones kick in and the body will take a breath whether you want to or not. So you have no self control over the amount of oxygen you breathe. Therefore, you really have no self control over the amount of food that you should eat. Let your hormones do this. Caveat: if you're eating the proper human diet, you will never be able to overeat. I've done it. As a matter of fact, for the last 3 days, and including today, I've been on a very strict zero carb, beef, butter, bacon, and eggs diet. Bacon, in its essence, I didn't eat bacon because our bacon here is cured with a little bit of sugar, and I wanted to go zero carb. So I grabbed chicharron, which is made out of the pancetta, which is made out of the stomach. It's just not smoked, processed, or cured in any way. So it's simply confit in its own lard, which is wonderful. Yum. So to that, I guaranteed, you cannot overeat beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. You simply can't do it. You can't overindulge in those four food products because your body's satiety signals will tell you to stop. And you just won't be able to eat another bite. And there's no self control when you allow your hormones to decide where your body should be. So there's kind of one of the little tricky things I think the Stoics didn't quite get. Yes, if you're on a heavy bread, heavy fruit, heavy veg diet, yeah, you're probably going to feel like you've overdone it, and then you're going to feel guilt, and you're going to feel a lot of other things that go along with quote unquote eating too much. I don't have that problem because of what I eat. And the nutrition, the density, and all told tells my hormones, you're good to go, bro. You don't need to eat till tomorrow. And I'll get to the fasting part here in a minute. So food should be inexpensive. Now, compared to what? I have run copious tests. I've done several reviews on how much healthcare costs are today. The average American in my age race, creed, color, national origin, group, runs about $8,000 a year on doctor visits, medicines, etc. This is an average bell curve. I have gauged that with the amount of meat that I eat compared to the delta, the change in what I would have eaten in the standard American diet. It is cheaper to eat beef, bacon, butter, and eggs than it is to eat the standard American diet. When you weigh in that I have spent exactly zero in healthcare costs, doctor visits, etc. As a matter of fact, I haven't been sick in 3 years already, and counting. No fever, no laid up, no nothing, friends. I feel great. So my diet is very inexpensive when you compare to the modern lifestyle and what we could be spending money on. Musonius liked plant matter over meat because it didn't require much cooking. Now, there are a set of carnivores who eat their meat raw, so there is no cooking required for some of the more extreme, I would say, carnivore diet eaters. Matter of fact, there was just this big argument between Bart Kay and a little kid named Joey who claimed that eating raw meat is better than cooked meat, although we do have paleontological evidence that we've been cooking our meat for about 1 million years. So it's about half of our human lifespan. We've been cooking meat and we've been doing okay. So again, there's no scientific evidence on which is better. If you prefer your steak tartare, then go ahead and eat it. If you want to throw it in a pan and sear the edge, go for it. There really isn't, look guys, it takes me literally 3 minutes to French omelette my eggs, and maybe another 5 minutes to cook my beef. And again, a sum total of 10 minutes cooking. I will eat for probably half an hour to 40 minutes until I'm full, but that's it. I just eat once a day. So how much time is involved in my diet? An hour, tops. I got 23 hours on how to do anything and everything else. One day, guys, really go through your life, calculate how much time you're taking, and I'm talking from the minute you walk into the kitchen, prepare your food, walk out, eat, wash your dishes. I forgot washing dishes. It takes me about 10 minutes to wash my dishes because I eat on a plate with a fork and a knife. Ta-da, that's it. And if my family does the same thing, there's 4 of us, and we just, everything's cumulative. The time isn't going to change much. Now they spend a little more time in the kitchen and wasting time eating and preparing and cleaning up. Hey, that's their deal. My deal, I'm telling you, 1 hour out of my day is spent consuming my fuel. Okay, so again, if it's a time consideration, you save time eating this way. Stoics are not vegetarians like the Pythagoreans. So the Stoics didn't have a shtick against meat. The Pythagoreans, for whatever reason, probably figured that, maybe some veg matter, some fruit matter would be fine. And vegetarians means they were able to eat eggs. Because there were no supplements then, there were no vegans. Vegans would be dead, and there's no supplements for them back in those days. Now, they did say to avoid gourmet food. So what would we think of that today? Going out and eating a lot in fast food restaurants or going out to the other restaurants. That would technically be gourmet food in the sense that, you go and you get pampered and whoa, you know what I mean? I mean, you pay for the service, obviously, but ... Be simple and austere. Now, guys, I don't know what's more austere than beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. 4 foods. That's it. That's all I've eaten. Salt to taste and water for the last 3 days. Today, I'm going to do the same thing. Tomorrow, I'm going to add some spice back because I do miss the spices. And it has nothing to do with an addiction. It's just, if you really don't need to do the quote-unquote lion diet, I imagine it would get a little boring. Personal opinion, nothing more. I definitely can't talk about others. So I'd say that's pretty simple, pretty austere. Stoics aren't as extreme as the Cynics, of course, as I mentioned that. Stoics like to live at the same time that they knew, hey, if I don't have control over something, I'm definitely not going to stress about it. People who eat more than they should actually make a mistake. Now, here the author states, eat healthy food. However, for Stoics, the main reason for doing this isn't just to improve our health. Paradoxically, it's to strengthen our character by exercising self-awareness and the virtue of self-discipline. Now, that's a really cool thing because, again, when I mention hormones, it has nothing to do with your character. You simply eat to your full and then you stop and you put whatever else it is away. There's no way to be a glutton on beef, bacon, butter, and eggs, guys. And even if I added chilies, there's just no way for me to become a glutton. I've stayed the same weight. I'm almost at a year here where I've been at 87 kilos. Boring. I know. Sorry. So after the end, he said, that's important today because we're bombarded with contradictory advice about the healthiest way to eat. The Stoics would say that we shouldn't allow that to confuse us. Okay, so don't worry about what's the healthiest way to eat. Don't get confused. We should make reasonable decisions and stick to them in order to develop self-control because that's fundamentally more important than losing weight or becoming physically healthy anyway. The Stoics were really big on controlling oneself. And look, I understand when you make your original paradigm shift from the standard Western diet to something like what I'm doing, very low carb, and obviously higher fat to go ahead and match out the protein, which for me is probably around 30%, I'm guessing. I'm not losing my muscles, and I feel strong, so obviously I'm eating enough protein. And what's going on here is, in the very beginning, when you shift your paradigm, yes, you're going to need a little bit of discipline, a little bit of self-control. The sugar addiction is incredibly powerful. I went through headaches and dry heaves. I literally went through a drug withdrawal. And not that I've ever been on any other drugs or addicted. I have reviewed several websites that actually say, what happens when you come off heroin, cocaine, meth, etc. Same exact thing happened to me when I got off sugar. I just decided one day the next flip a switch, and that's probably not the best way to do it. I do have a method for transitioning over a 2-week to a month period if you want to transition over. And then it really doesn't require as much self-discipline because the change is so slight over time. You don't really notice it, and your hormones have a chance to catch up and take over. So let's go on here. I'm just trying to find my place, sorry. Okay, so again, to be clear, both goals are a value. Obviously, health and a little bit of longevity to teach the next generation is a good idea. But for Stoics, the primary goal was strength of character and and physical health. Well, preferred, as they phrase it, is of secondary importance. Okay, so the primary goal was strength of character. The idea of physical health to them was secondary because if you can control yourself, then everything else falls into place. That was their order. Socrates, let's have him enter the fray here, famously said that hunger is the best relish. And that's a quote from him, alluding to the irony that we actually enjoy our food more when we're hungry, and we spoil our appetites when we overindulge. So let's talk about that real quick, especially maybe you're parents and you have children, and you feed them a snack, and then you get all irritated because they're not finishing everything on their plate. Well, guys, their hormones said they're full. You can't fight a hormone, and all you're going to do is piss off the kid. So why don't you try this? Stop feeding them breakfast. They really don't need it. I mean, if you told a kid all of a sudden there's something going on outside and he wants to go play, and you're like, well, first you have to sit and eat your cereal. Oh, hell no. They're mad. No, let them go out and play. Let them do whatever they're going to do. When they're hungry, they're going to come in and say, I'm hungry. And then you feed them eggs, bacon, butter, and beef. All right? Some water, salt to their taste. They'll eat, and when they're done eating, They'll leave whatever's left on their plate and they'll go play again. And then when they're hungry, you give them whatever was left. They're gonna eat. They're gonna eat ravenously. They're never gonna complain about their food. I complained about my damn vegetables. I couldn't stomach eating those damn things, but I always asked everybody for their fat. My mom would say, "Oh, you can do that till you're 30 because high saturated fat." Da, 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 da. Yeah, I know. Not her fault. That's how they were trained. So try this with your kids. Just feed them when they actually ask for food. But don't give them chips. Don't get, "Oh, I don't want that." Oh, they don't want that now because they're addicted. Wean them off slowly. Give them a little chip. But at the end, feed them their meat. And then say, "If you eat all your meat, I'll give you a few chips," or whatever garbage food you're giving them. And then wean that off. Half. Little bit, little bit. They won't notice eventually. And they're just going to be like, "Oh, actually, I don't want that." And they're just going to eat their meat. All right? Give it a try. You don't know. They're individuals. I don't know. They may choose to remain drug addicted. That's unfortunate. And you didn't know. So please never, ever feel guilty, especially if you're a kid. We hear that some kids in their teenage years are going in for liver transplants and stuff. Oh, shame, shame, shame on the establishment for teaching that this was the way to handle kids. We never had liver transplants when I was a kid. And I'm sure they didn't before. Hell, until they even knew how to do liver transplants, right? So Socrates says this wonderfully. He said, "Many men live to eat." If that's you, I would suggest you might be slightly addicted to food or have some psychological area in your world that you need to find out why that is. Why do you live to eat? You should simply eat to live. Let me give you a correlation to that. Here in Mexico, for example, I have chosen to work to live. Okay? I don't live to work. I don't work a lot. I work enough. I became minimalist, so I don't need to pay for nonsense. Anything I pay for is essential, especially for my body and its health and my foods that I eat. A little bit of rent. I do have the internet. Well, everyone has the internet, so sue me. There's an indulgence. Electricity seems to be a requirement here. But again, I chose to work in order to live, to enjoy life. But there are an awful lot of people who live to work. They're fulfilled with this idea of we, not the company, not I, we are doing great, wonderful things. Hey, if that fulfills you, God love you. Again, this isn't a judgment. This is, I simply decided to do something a little different. And if that kind of lifestyle to work and work and work and wow, bless you for that. That's awesome. Because we do need people like you to keep everything flowing so that people like us, you would probably consider us lazy or oh, they don't do anything for the economy. Actually, I teach English. I do a lot for my Mexican economy. Trust me when I tell you that. We all have our ways, right? So, again, here's what the Stoics were teaching. I will also give you the source down below. So, the Stoics essentially were saying, eat in moderation. They didn't necessarily mean eat your foods in moderation, like you should have a little bit of this, a little bit of that. No. They said, be moderate with your food consumption. And I told you I would discuss fasting a little bit. I'm sorry, I should really quickly mention that. I eat one meal a day, and I have been doing this for I would say almost a year already. Definitely through last summer, which started in February, March for us here. And fasting is incredible because you save a lot of time. You're not prone to snacking and spending money on little thingies here and there. You are definitely healthier. Your insulin falls to baseline within a couple hours after you've eaten, and then it stays there for the next multitude of hours until you eat again. And just the health benefits that we're finding in randomized controlled trials on fasting are incroyable. They are very incredible. They're very, you really wouldn't believe it. I'm still sitting here in awe that all I did was choose not to eat carbohydrates, and my body went back to where I was when I was 18 years old. I know I don't look 18. Sorry. Yeah, my DNA hasn't been replicating as perfectly as it might have, could have, possibly have Ubietta been, but shit happens. So here we go. I appreciate you sitting through the video here and learning a little bit about some Stoicism and how we should eat. Again, just take everything in its own time and place, and control what you can, and don't worry about what you can't control. And I think you'll be quite a bit healthier, happier, and that'll be a good thing in the end. All right, guys, we'll chat with you again soon. Be well.